Hello, I'm Alec Baldwin, and I'd like to talk to you about some of the amazing things the Screen Actors Guild Foundation does that you may not have heard about. The Screen Actors Guild Foundation exists because every actor knows the importance of pursuing dreams, and because sometimes those dreams need help, from helping actors improve their skills with master classes and seminars to assisting with emergency medical costs, from helping artists understand the business of their craft to using an actor's gift for storytelling in the fight for children's literacy. The SAG Foundation is hard at work because we know that the most important thing about dreams is making them come true. Visit us at sagfoundation.org to find out about how the Foundation can help you and how you can help the Foundation. Support the SAG Foundation. Act now.
This ain't even on. Oh, it's on! You guys tricked me. Hey everyone, I'm Seth Coltan from the Virtual Channel Network at Breakdown Services. My producing partner, Otto Woolfolk, and I are really happy this evening to be partnering with the SAG Foundation to bring you this event because we believe so much in what the SAG Foundation does and what they support in the community, and we support the same things. Just a little bit about us, you can check us out at virtualchannelnetwork.com. We constantly interview agents, managers, and casting directors so you guys can learn about their office for free. This evening is going to be a special event. As you know, it is called the Ramp Up to Pilot Season. It's called the Prepping for Pilot Season panel with some of the top casting associates actually in Hollywood. It's going to be a fantastic event. Throughout the night, you guys can fill out your question cards if you're here in the audience, or if you're at home and you have some questions you want to send in, you can do it on Twitter with hashtag SAGF, or you can email to livestream@sagfoundation.org. Without further ado, let me bring up our esteemed panelists, and we'll learn a little bit about them before we learn a little bit about pilot season. So up first, I would like to introduce you to Eric Souliere. Next is Gohar Gazazyan. Troy Daniel Smith. That's good. Mike Page, come to the stage. And Ty Harman rounds us out. As you guys fill out your questions, please raise your hand. Dennis will come around, or you'll pass it down to Dennis. He'll grab them. Otto Woolfolk will then go through it and pass it up to me for the Q&A time. As we begin tonight, thank you guys for coming out. I would like to acknowledge first that this room and those viewing at home is full of actors, managers, and talent agents, all of whom deserve an extreme amount of kudos for coming out or tuning in to do something proactive for their career. And I would like us, well, you, to give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. So before we jump into pilot season, can you guys each come on the line and could we learn a little bit about who you guys are and what you do?
I'm Eric. Can you hear me? Yeah. Is this close enough? Okay. I'm Eric. I am an associate at Ulrich Dawson Kreutzer Casting. I've been there almost 7 years. I started there on Nip Tuck. I've been working on The Mentalist since day one of the pilot of that show, and I've been working on American Horror Story since day one of that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. Hi, I'm Gohar. Is that good?
That's good.
I've been working in casting for about 6 years. Right now I'm an associate at Bialy Thomas Casting. I've been with them for 3.5, 4 years. And we do a lot of great projects. Right now I'm working on Walking Dead, which finished up. It's a great show. And Vegas, currently, yeah. So, thank you.
My name's Troy. I work with Howard Meltzer. I'm his associate. I've been with him for 4 years. Since I met him actually downstairs at the old SAG Foundation office, and I started interning for him. Actually, no, 5 years. I'm sorry. I'm older than I pretended to be. I met him 5 years ago and started interning for him, and then officially started working for him 4 years ago. But thank you, SAG Foundation, for making that introduction. Currently, we're working on Lab Rats, which is a Disney XD series, multi-camera sitcom. And we've done Hannah Montana, Life with Boys, just a lot of multi-camera stuff. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Mike Page. I am currently with David Rappaport Casting. I am the associate on CW's new show, Arrow. Also, let's see, in the past, have worked with Dava Waite Peasley, worked with April Webster, Risa Brayman Garcia, just to name a few. I've done a good amount of pilots. I've been an associate for about 2 years and casting for coming up on 5 years. I've done about 9 pilots. I did Community, Raising Hope. Those are the 2 big ones. And then several other pilots that did not go, but we can talk about those later.
I'm Ty Harman. I'm a casting director with Guthrie Goddard Smythe Casting. We currently are working on Malibu Country on ABC, Crash and Bernstein on Disney XD, Warehouse 13 and Alphas, which are on Sci-Fi, The Game, which is on BET, The X's, which is on TV Land, and Shake It Up, which is on the Disney Channel.
Thank you. So, Gohar, I'd like to start off with you. Could you please
Because I'm nervous.
tell us all, maybe tell us all definitively what the various positions are within a casting office and generally what the duties are for each position.
Interesting question. Well, casting offices are relatively simple. There are really 3 positions. There is a casting assistant, casting associate, associate casting director, which is where many of us are, and a casting director. A casting assistant is sort of the entry-level position, and you are really, or they are really handling all of the paperwork of the office. Jump in, guys, if I'm missing anything.
Doing great.
Thank you. You know, handling phone calls, handling the organization of the office. You know, they also, especially experienced assistants, oftentimes will creatively contribute. I know that I didn't. I was an assistant, and it's just, you know, a process of learning and preparing yourself for the next level, which is the associate. And the associate is much more involved in all aspects of the show, especially creatively, in, you know, coming up with ideas, participating in concept calls with producers, setting up sessions, running sessions, really casting roles, and sort of really being the number 2 to the casting director. And then there's the casting director, who's the big boss. And you know, they're essentially, you know, the immediate liaison with producers, though many times an associate will participate in that as well. I'm good? Yes? Great.
No, that was really clear and concise. Mike, can you explain a little bit about how pilot casting differs from year-round television casting?
Yes, it sucks.
And why does it suck, Mike?
The big difference with pilot casting versus episodic casting, for example, with episodic, usually more or less, the rule is generally with a half hour you'll have 5 days, with a hour long you'll have 8 days. Of course, each show, each network can be a little bit different on that, and that's of course assuming you get script on day 1 of pre-production, which doesn't always happen.
Never.
But with pilot season, we do have usually approximately 10 weeks or so to cast the entire pilot. With that, especially for series regular roles, we're going to be much more likely to turn over every rock, shake every tree. We'll be going after the big names. We'll be looking for new discoveries. Every pilot is kind of a reinvention of the wheel, at least in my experience, you know, when it comes down to how the different networks operate, how the different writers, directors, producers, etc. like to operate. Some people like to have the big major mega sessions, you know, where we'll see 100, 200 actors every single day. Others, like a more narrow focused, will have a particular actor in mind when the role was written that we'll go after, or, you know, they'll do the name game, the offer only list. But again, each one is different. I mean, I've had roles where we went after just one person and they accepted, and that's who got the role. I've had other pilots that I've worked on that we've seen upwards of 2,500 actors for. So it can be entirely different, whereas with Episodic, with guest cast and co-stars, we'll generally see, 8 to 10, maybe 20 or so people, depending on the necessity and the requirements for that role.
Great. And Eric, are you able to sort of define or outline the dates pilot season, or roughly the pilot season begins and ends?
Yeah. Typically, it's January through March, but more specifically, I mean, the industry kind of came back from the holidays this week, and this is kind of when all the pilots are getting picked up by networks, and they're figuring out and deciding which pilots they're going to make. So over the next probably week or so, all the pilots will kind of start up and hire casting directors and kind of get their feet on the ground, and then from there it's like Mike said, the name game. Usually you start out with that, with lists and going after names for the roles, and then after that it kind of trickles down to readings and testing actors, and pretty much essentially everything's kind of wrapped up by the middle or end of March.
Until recasts happen.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll get there.
I mean,
Great.
that's typical, but some pilots are on different schedule. I mean, they're all kind of different, but that's essentially how it goes.
Ty, Eric just mentioned something about reading and testing. Can you explain to us what that means, the difference between reading and testing?
Well, it's really the same thing. It's just you've just been at it longer on a pilot. You'll come in initially for a pre-read. If you're a typical session actor, if we feel like you're a viable candidate, we'll take you on to producers. Once the producers, they may see you once, they may see you more than once before we decide we want to test you, at which point then your agent will make your deal, which will establish your pilot and episodic price, your billing, your dressing room, your merchandise participation, all that, everything, that goes into a 7.5 year series deal. Then we will take you to studio, because remember that studios make television shows, networks do not. We will test you at the studio level. If you pass through that level, then you will go to the network level and test at the network level. And if you get that, then you end up at the table read, where you can still be replaced after the table read. If you make it through the table and they shoot the pilot, the chances of it getting picked up are slim to none. If you're lucky enough that your pilot gets picked up, hopefully it lasts more than, episode 2 or 3. So that's kind of the process. You can be replaced literally at any point along the way.
Yeah.
Generally, if they've gone through this entire rigmarole.
Would anyone like to leave now?
No, you're just talking about the reality. That's okay. If they've gone through this entire rigmarole of the pre-read to reading to testing, why then do you think they feel the need to recast so often after they've worked so hard to find the right cast? Just put that up to your head.
Well, a lot of factors. You could go through the whole process and cast someone, and then comes the table read, and it doesn't mesh for some reason, and they decide that you're not really the way they wanted to go, and they can recast you at that point. A lot, I guess not the most common, but it's been known to happen after the pilot is shot, and all the networks announce.
Closer.
Sorry. And all of the networks announce which pilots they're picking up or they're not picking up, then, from the pilots that aren't picked up, that's a whole slew of actors who are now available. So maybe there was somebody that one pilot wanted, an actor that one pilot wanted that was cast on another pilot, and now that pilot wasn't picked up, so they might replace, I don't want to say fire, replace one of the actors on their pilot with another actor that they wanted who had become unavailable but now is available. So those are a few reasons.
And also along those lines, with things not meshing, a lot of times after a table read or even getting into rehearsals for a show, the writers might think, or they get a network note like, there's we really see the brother as a sister now, or there needs to be another brother, or another sister, or maybe we don't like the dad now. So that creatively, writers, what can these writers worked on for a whole year and a half, 2 years sometimes. Once they get into the working parts, they're like, maybe we need to go the other way. So you could be replaced from a pilot through no fault of your own. Just the writers changed their mind with what they wanted.
In my experience, that actually, when I've had actors replaced on pilots that I've worked on, I've yet to come across it being the actor's fault, per se, because they did something wrong or they weren't right. Usually what it has been in my experience is exactly what Troy was saying, that creatively, as they get closer to it, getting picked up to a series, where are they going to really go? If you have spent much time watching pilots, and examine what the pilot of Will and Grace looked like versus what the series really turned in, Karen didn't even have her voice. You can look at a lot of different examples of characters that were in the pilots that you never see again. You see a little note from them. That's generally just where's it going to come down to. And I think also the big part is remembering that television is a product. Each television show, though yes, is a form of entertainment, it's about money. It's about what is going to sell best. And, actors are, for a metaphor, an ingredient, and maybe the brand is not selling big. Maybe we need more Cocoa Puffs in it, and that's just what's testing better. That's what the public is currently responding to better. That's what the way the market is shifting. A lot of times those decisions will be made that way.
Cool. Do you guys think that there's still room for us working class actors to break in at pilot season?
Always. We're in the needle in a haystack business. If you come in and no one's ever heard of you and you score and you end up on a show that actually gets picked up and turns into a breakout hit, we look like geniuses, And maybe we are and maybe we're not. But the reality is, especially during pilot season, my experience is it would be fantastic to not have to go to that feature actor who's finally slipping off the feature map and they're finally going to do television, and to go to somebody that you've never heard of and watch them, anchor an ensemble. I think that's maybe the most exciting thing that can happen during pilot season.
And I would say now more than ever that could be the case, because before you'll always hear like, well, how do I get seen by these people? They don't know my work. Maybe they haven't seen my play, or they haven't seen any of the short films I'm in. There's no excuse for not having yourself out there and available with the internet being what it is, and technology being the way that it is, and how it's advanced, and how easy it is to create content for yourself that either catches on, or you'll hear that huge Twitter following, or I have so many views on YouTube, excuse me. But putting yourself out there, like creating your own content, is so easy to do these days that, it's easy to, tweet out a link or send a link and be like, oh, this person's really funny. Why not give them a shot on the show?
Just to add to all that, I think that anytime you go into a casting office, even if it's for a small part, what you're doing is introducing yourself to that office. I mean, when we work on a pilot, we're looking at all the people that we met and loved during episodic casting. I mean, we've put people in pilots who we had read for co-star roles but loved and then kept bringing in, and continued to see that they're really ready for that level. So it's, I think absolutely in agreeing with all that, but every time you go in, that's what you're doing for a casting office. You're making a relationship with them. They're seeing your work, and our job is to remember good actors, and bring them in when we get to that pilot, when that role fits. So, yeah.
That makes sense. So along those lines, there are a number of actors that I've spoken to who feel that their career is escalating. They no longer want to read for co-stars, and they're ready for guest stars. At a point in a career like that, do you think they should stop or pass on a co-star audition during pilot season? Or how does that work? Because I've heard for pilots, a co-star can easily be turned into a recurring if the show gets picked up. What advice would you have for an actor who wants to move on but is still getting co-star auditions?
Me personally, I like work, and I like to be paid for work. And also, like Seth was alluding to, a co-star can become a guest star in a pilot. A guest star can become a series regular. With all of these things out of your control, not knowing what the producers are wanting to do, not knowing, which network execs and be like, I love that role of the bus driver. We need to bring him back more often. With all of these things that you can't control or envision ever becoming a possibility, why pass up on an opportunity for something that could be really great?
Yeah, I think work begets work, and I think that it's always great to be on set, to be working with a director who may love you and remember you, producers who are the same. We've absolutely hired very small parts that have become much more than that. So I wouldn't say just pass to pass. I would say look at the role and see, even if it's something small, if it's something really cool and a great show, and it would be a great opportunity for you. So.
Well, to add on to that, also to kind of add on to what Ty said, I mean, the likelihood of a pilot going is slim to none. A great thing about booking a co-star.
He's going to write another script. That director is going to go on to direct another episodes of TV or a film or something. So the more people you can meet to increase your network of people that you know working, and increase the likelihood of that person hiring you again is fantastic. Like I did some work on a show this past season where the director just, rather than having casting, he said, this role, I love this role. I want this guy that was in this Chevy commercial that I did, or this dog food commercial that I did. And he would hire straight away people that he had worked with before. And you only get those relationships by working.
Thank you. So, Eric, we just talked about actors who are even potentially in a position to want to pass on a co-star. What about the actor who's fighting as hard as they can to even get in the door for a co-star? What advice do you have for those of us who are just trying to get your attention or just trying to get our career off the ground?
I mean, there's a few different ways. I mean, it all kind of depends whether or not you have representation. If you do not have representation, get some. Just kidding. But if you don't have representation, I mean, you really got to work harder. You got to meet the people who are casting the shows you want to focus on being on. I mean, there's a million different ways to do that. Do projects that you can submit yourself for, whether it be theater or short films or whatever, and bring it to our attention that you're in a play or that you're going to appear on this or you're going to be in this. And because we're always looking and we're always watching stuff. So if we get notification that this is you and you're going to be in something, you're going to be in this play, then when I'm watching, I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I have a weird brain, and I'll probably remember seeing your postcard or whatever it is.
That's why you just won Talent or Casting Associate of the Year at the TMAs. Good job.
So I mean, obviously, if you don't have representation, you got to work harder and promote yourself and meet the people who are going to bring you that step further. If you do have representation, I mean, you still could be doing that, but also, that your agent and manager are there to get you in the room and kind of monitor what they're doing and check in, and if you see something you want to be considered for, ask them and have them pitch you. We take pitches all day. They happen. It's them doing their jobs. But I know, when an agent or manager is pitching to us every single episode of every single show, and they're always, and that kind of loses its value. But when people call us and they are obviously very passionate about someone, we're going to take into consideration. So that's what I have to say.
That was really good. Anybody else?
I would just add to that. I think that I think what you're getting at is trying to expose yourself as much as you can by meeting people who are in casting and doing plays. Also, in the meanwhile, I think you have to just keep at it in terms of going to class and keeping, and working that muscle. Because I think what happens a lot of times, auditioning is very much a skill. I don't know if you guys agree with that. And I think the more you do it, the better you are at it, the more comfortable you are in the room. And when you're more comfortable, then we're really seeing your work. So I think you just, have to keep acting even if you're not going in. Does that,
Talk-
you know?
And talk to your actor friends who are in your class or in the play with you, because they might have representation or that they can refer you to, or they might know people that they can refer you to. So, you know, don't be a pest about anything, but just do it the smart way. And
I think a couple things that these guys hit on are very important to mention too. Having an agent manager representation is fantastic in the end game for a lot of people, but so many actors will be like, oh, I got an agent. I'm done doing my work. They're going to take care of all of this for me. And that's not healthy either. It's a partnership where you guys work with each other to forward careers. And then when Gohar hit on class, that's the most, you got to work the muscle, as she said. That's the most important thing. Like, I love baseball. Anybody else? No way in hell am I going to be ready to pitch in the World Series tomorrow. You know, and as an actor, you need to keep up that muscle of going to class, doing plays, doing your web series, whatever, so that when the audition comes tomorrow or next week or next month, you're ready to go. It's not like, oh, I have an audition. Okay, now I'm ready. And
Yeah, that's all great advice, really.
keep it going.
As you guys know, and certainly as you guys know and you guys at home know, being an actor is rough. Especially, you know, you put everything on the line. You put your heart on the line. You put your life on the line just for an opportunity. And you, as people who work in casting, you're working with actors on a daily basis. Do you have any words of encouragement for people who have done this for most of their professional life, but are feeling like I haven't caught a break? It's not going to happen. Is it possible that it can still happen randomly?
yeah.
Yes. I'll vouch. Yeah.
Well, positivity is the most important. You have to, you know, this is your goal, this is your dream. You know, you quit your job, you moved halfway across the country because this is what you want to do, and knowing that it could happen tomorrow, and it has before for a lot of people. It could happen next year. It could happen 15 years from now. There's no. It's not like becoming a doctor where you go to med school and then, or grad school, med school, take your boards and residency, and then 27 years later you're a doctor. There's no timeline. There's no one path to become an actor or a performer, an entertainer of any kind. You just have to, you know, hate to use the phrase like fighting the good fight or whatever, but you have to stay true to what you want to do and know that if that's what you want to pursue and you're going to put in the work and the time, that eventually it's going to happen. It's going to happen when the time's right for you.
And you got to make your own stuff. You can't sit around waiting for other people to give you opportunities if you're unhappy with the way things are going. You know, do a web series. Just create something to show yourself off and promote yourself. And I mean, I can tell you countless stories of actors I know who have done that, and it's really moved things along for them. So
I think you also have to look at yourself and take responsibility for your own career, you know? There's not...
Enough with the nice stuff. Tell us the truth.
Right? No, but the reality is this. If you're not working and you've been doing this for a while, you have to look at yourself as honestly as possible and try to figure out why is that? Are you in class every week? Are you stretching? Is your you know, instrument, quote unquote, are you growing and nurturing that? And are you any good? You know, the reality is, this is my experience, you know. I've been working in the business since I was 16.
Can you hold the mic a little closer?
Yeah, I've certainly experienced a lot, so I can only tell you about my experience, and that is, generally speaking, actors don't have any sense of themselves. I get calls all day from agents and managers saying, you know, Betty Smith came in and she really thought she hit it out of the park, and the reality is she stunk. You know, or vice versa. You know, Betty Smith wanted me to apologize because she felt like she really stunk up the joint, and the reality was she was fantastic. You know, so you have to attempt to get honest with yourself and what are you presenting to the community at large, you know? The reality is, I don't need to go and see Danny in the Deep Blue Sea at the complex. I just don't, you know? So you want to be smart about what you're showing the business. Should you do that production of Danny in the Deep Blue Sea? Absolutely, and go through that process and work with other actors and work on a great play and work with a director, but maybe invite your family and friends to that one, you know? You have to be careful about what you show to us, because the casting process is an inverted pyramid. We start with everybody, and somebody ends up with a job. So if I see your lousy play, or your lousy web series, or something you shot with your friends on a weekend, and it's terrible, I don't need to bring you in, you know? yes, you absolutely need to create your own opportunities, but you need to make sure that they're going to pay off for you. Now, does anybody want to leave?
Well, I'll add on a little hippy-dippy part of that. For me, in my experience, now I'll try to make you feel better. For me, it's about perseverance, to keep on going and doing what you need to do to keep at it, to keep the joy, to keep the love of what you're doing. For me personally, my biggest pet peeve in the room is when an actor comes in and I can tell that they don't want to be there and that they're not ready to be there and that they're not having fun. I actually love what I do for a living, and I hope you do as well. I want you to take care of yourself as a professional, which is exactly what everybody's saying here. Keep studying, making your own content, etc. Keep growing. Take care of yourself as an artist. Make sure that you're staying open to new forms of creativity and expanding your horizons. If you're a drama actor, take comedy classes. If you're into comedy, make sure you're doing some stand-up, etc. Just always growing your instrument. And finally, taking care of yourself as a person. Making sure that you have outside interests, you have friends who have nothing to do with the industry to keep you sane, that you have the ability to keep going forward. I mean, even some of the most successful A-list actors, you look at their careers, they have ups, they have downs. The people who are the most successful are the people who keep at it every day, and that's, I think, finding the joy, the love, and the fun for it.
And I'll say something about this too. I think it's about a balance of all of these things. I think that it is about this industry is about endurance. Even in what we do, even any element of this industry, actors, writers, everybody sometimes it takes a long time for you to get to where you want to be. So you do definitely want to do all the things everyone's saying. But I think it is important for you to really, really be truthful and look at yourself. Every person who tries to be an actor is not going to become a successful working actor. There aren't enough roles. If you can think about it that way, I think that if it's not working out and if you look at yourself and you think maybe this is not, maybe you once thought this was it for you and maybe it's not, there's so many other elements of the industry that can give you that same creative fulfillment. And I do think it's important to also think about that. I mean, I think it's a balance of those two things. I think you do have to work at it, but you also have to be honest with yourself at every step of the way.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. That was really, really meaningful.
Could I add,
Please.
and along the lines of, being true to yourself, and you have to know what type of actor you are and what type of roles you're going to be playing. And that kind of ties in with the representations and pitch calls and whatnot. But, I mean, if you want to be an action star, if that's what your goal is to be, know that those roles are slim. But you also, can't be 190 pounds and sit on the couch waiting for that call. You have to work at it in your personal life, eating right, taking care of yourself as a person, and eating healthy and working out and being that type of actor. If you're if what you want to get into is sitcoms, you have to be funny a lot of times. And I know as actors or performers, we want to know, like, oh, I'm versatile. I'm a chameleon. I can do so many different roles, which can be true for some people, but it's not true for everybody. So knowing what type of actor you are or work to become is important also.
And keeping up with that as it changes. Unfortunately, time marches on. And knowing, are you still able to play high school? And yes, I work on a CW show, so I get that, but not everybody can still play high school, and are you at the point where, it is time to start exploring the parental roles, or the grandparental roles, are you, whichever it is, and embracing that, and also knowing that, I think you guys would agree, the longer you stay in, if you're an actor in your 20s, knowing that you probably have the most competition of anybody. And the longer you hold out, I'm not going to say the easier it gets, but the talent pool does get a little bit smaller. Again, it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but knowing what your type is. And, maybe it was great if 5 years ago you were able to play the hot girl. That doesn't mean you're not attractive anymore. But, you're probably not CW hot girl anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think I'm the king of the one more thing.
I love it. Keep it up.
And also, in along the lines of being a smart actor and knowing what you're going to play. You're going to play high school on the CW. You're probably not going to play high school on a show like Ty and I work on. There are different levels of age breakdown, so you need to know what you're going in for. You know, if you're going in for a Disney Channel show and you've never watched it, there's no excuse to never watch that show. They're on 75 times a day. You can download them on iTunes. They're on YouTube. If you're going in for Arrow or a new show or something, like I've never seen The Walking Dead. Well, Google it, and you can find, you know, what the show is about, and know, yeah, if you're, you know, a 25-year-old girl, you're not going to play high school on one of my shows, most likely, because a 25-year-old woman is a woman. Yeah. As I turn beet red.
So let me switch gears and ask a question for the talent reps who are in the audience and watching at home. Eric mentioned that he's taking pitch calls. The UDK is taking pitch calls. A lot of the breakdowns that are coming out now say specifically, do not call. So does that mean that the
They've always said that.
Oh.
Listens to that. No one listens to that.
So
Nobody listens.
Are you guys, do you still encourage pitching if the talent reps believes in the client?
Okay, I'm going to take this one. I encourage pitching. I absolutely encourage pitching when you have a client that you're really passionate about, that the casting office doesn't know, that you're really excited for them to meet. Absolutely. I mean, I think that the problem with pitching becomes that we are one
Can you go a little closer?
we are one office, and we get calls from you know, hundreds of them. A breakdown will go out and we'll get completely inundated. In the meanwhile, we're also trying to do our work. So it's a little difficult when agents call and they want to pitch 10 of their clients, and or they call and they're always pitching, you know, the same clients for roles that they might not be appropriate for, or maybe being too pushy. But otherwise, I think pitching is great. That's how we meet a lot of wonderful new people that we didn't know about before. But I think the most successful pitches are the ones that are very sort of honed in. You know, I think over time, agents get to know what casting offices respond to, you know, what kind of actors. They know the tone of the show. And I think that's the smartest way to pitch. Those are always the ones that, you know, I respond to. And those are the relationships I make with agents, where it's like they're those 2 or 3 people they're really passionate about for this role, and they tell, you know, they talk about it. I think that's very helpful in those cases.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's part of the buildup of the relationship. I mean, I know, especially, God forbid, pilot season, you know, but even for a guest star role, you know, we'll release it, and I kind of always say, and there's blood in the water, you know, and the
We make an announcement, like the breakdown's going out, the breakdown's going out.
And you can always tell, because it's about, you know, we'll get the email from Breakdown, your breakdown has been released. 3, 2, 1, bring. You know, and the emails stop popping through. I mean, I'll get, you know, especially during pilot season, 500 emails a day easily.
Emails and calls, then follow-ups about the emails. It becomes a little, you know.
You know, and it's a necessary evil. Because the truth is, you know, yes, in a perfect world, we would have all the time that we could just do our creative thing and just go with people that we know and that we've seen. And, you know, the truth is, the agents and the managers bring to us people that may not be on our radar, or we may just not have thought about, and, you know, are wonderful. And, of course, have actors, you know, that they're to represent. But exactly, you know, what Gohar said, that, you know, the ones that I will really listen to, I mean, there's definitely people that I work with that I almost give carte blanche to. That's like, if you tell me to bring them in, I will bring them in. You know, period, hook, line, sinker, I trust you.
And
then
what do
there are
they have
others-
to do to earn that trust?
To be on top of it, you know, to really know exactly what you said. If you pitch your entire client roster, you know, it starts getting ridiculous to me. When somebody calls up and says, no, really, this person, I read the script, I know this character, like, seriously, you have to see this girl. Here's her demo reel. You know, they're spot on. And the actor comes in and they live up to that experience. You know, trial and error, you know, goes real quick. And I actually also feel the same thing with self-pitching. You know, with the actors who do have my email address, or that I've met through plays or workshops or wherever they've come across my path, you know, I have actors that'll pitch almost every single breakdown that comes out. I'm like, that's great, but when I said the role needed to be African American, I actually meant that. You know, blondes don't count, no offense. you know, and those people will not. But when an actor truly knows themselves and email me and say, this is not just a role I can do, but this is my role, please take a look at me, you know, I'll be open to that.
Did you have something you want to say, Ty?
Well, I just think that agents and managers need to make sure that they know what they're selling. You know, there are all different, you know, levels of agencies that start, you know, with the one-man band that has 500 clients and they're just submitting, you know, praying that something sticks, up to the highest level, you know, where you're probably not going to get on guest spots. We're not going to get pitches, you know, from the big five, generally speaking. But, you know, the rank and file agents and managers out there that, you know, the bread and butter for them are the co-star and guest star business, then you need to make sure that you're pitching wisely, you know. As Mike was saying, you know, we build relationships with people based on truth and mutual respect. They need me and I need them, you know, and if they're pitching me people that I don't know and I bring them in and they score, that's great. And the converse can be true as well. If they're pitching me people and I bring them in and they're dreadful, that relationship, you know, I'll do that once, maybe twice, but then it's like, I can't trust your taste, you know?
Eric, as a associate, do you have the ability to call somebody in from a pitch, or do you always have to run it up through the casting director?
I can call them in. I mean, not. It's complicated. No, I mean the way we do things. I don't know if other people do it this way, but when we get pitch phone calls, I politely ask them to email me the pitch because it's easier to manage them that way. And then we put all the pitches on a pitch log before we go through the submissions. And on the shows I work on, you know, I'll do some of the roles myself, and the guy I work with, he'll do some of the roles himself. But, you know, if I ask him to see someone, he'll see them, and vice versa. So I look at all the pitches. I don't necessarily pass all of them along, but yes, if someone is pitched to me and I look at them and they look cool and that we've never seen them before and that they could be right, yes, by all means.
Cool. Thank you. We're going to play a little game now. It's called Appropriate or Inappropriate. Okay? I'd like you to take one and pass them down. Now, the rules of this game is I'm going to make a statement. You're going to show us whether it's appropriate and say it, or inappropriate and say it, and hopefully it will start a conversation. Okay, you guys all have yours? Okay. Question number one, or statement number one, I should say. Sending your headshot to the casting office in hopes you might get a general meeting. Appropriate or inappropriate? Say it, people, say it.
Appropriate.
Yours is inappropriate. Eric, please tell us why it's
To
inappropriate.
get a general meeting?
To get a general meeting.
Because it's not going to happen.
So, for those of you, that's a good point.
I
A
mean,
lot of people don't do generals.
we
For those-
only do generals when our producers or studio network asks us to meet somebody.
And for those of you who said it was appropriate, do you do generals?
We do generals, but, you know, we don't do a lot of generals. I think we do generals with people who, especially, usually a lot of times it's working actors or people who have done something that's, you know, getting a lot of great attention, or someone who's in town from New York or elsewhere or out of the country. We typically don't do generals with sort of actors who are just sort of starting out, because we would like to bring them in and have them read something. But we do generals, like, for example, when we go to the showcases sometimes, and you know, it depends. It's not a. I don't think realistically, if you send your picture to a casting office, and you don't have a lot on your resume, that you're going to get a general with.
But
them.
it's not
But
inappropriate.
it's not inappropriate. I wouldn't flag it as
I'd
inappropriate.
like to change my answer
Tell us
to
your
to a yellow light.
Okay, next one. I'd like to hear your answers nice and loud. I want you to be motivated, people. Okay, getting called in for a role, but telling the casting office you would rather read for another role they're casting.
Inappropriate.
Inappropriate.
It's yours. Sort of. Okay, guys, for those of you who call it inappropriate, please let us know why.
I don't mind if there's another role you feel passionate about. I am definitely open to hearing that, but don't just not prepare the role that we're bringing you in for. We have a specific reason, and maybe have faith that we are professionals and we know what we're doing. In that standpoint, that there is something and there's a reason, whether it's because we've had the concept meeting with our producers and our writers and our network, et cetera, and we know specifically what they're asking for, that we're familiar with your work, and that we're like, sorry, you're no longer the high school hot girl anymore. You need to be the mom, or whatever it is.
Right. Or if you don't want to come in for that role, then you just pass on that role.
Got it.
Yeah.
And for you, Eric?
Well, it happens a lot, and all I can say is if you're called in for one role and you read the script and you want to be considered for another one, when the request is given to us before you come in, I think it's fine. And as long as we say, thanks, but no thanks, we really want to see you for this one, and you're fine with it and you still come in, I think that's okay. It's when someone comes in for a role and says, hey, can I also read this one? It's uncomfortable and awkward and inappropriate.
Inappropriate.
And a lot of times with that too, like you'll come in and read for a role, and then through the reading, and we see what you're doing, we'll be like, oh, we got that wrong. We should have seen her for Sandy as opposed to Becky, and then we'll say, hey, would you mind reading Sandy? And that that could have been, I don't know. We make mistakes too, sometimes.
Okay, next one. Actors dropping off gifts to the casting office.
Inappropriate.
Depends on the
Send a gift. Send a gift, but like because
Send it. Don't drop it off, but get it.
If you
I'm
if
just
you were
kidding.
if you're booked on a role or whatever, you want to drop something off, a little thing that's cool.
No, I'm talking
because
about
you-
trying to get your attention.
right, like
Yeah,
in
I want
that
you to
in that
see me.
respect. In that respect, you
Inappropriate.
never know what's going on in the office. You could be interrupting workflow. Maybe the producers are in there for a meeting, and you're gonna
I
pop by
don't
and
need
drop something
candy
off.
or cookies or pencils with your bag of postcards.
I eat so
know?
much crap at work, anyways. Like more candy and cookies is just bad.
What I can guarantee, the one moment that you decide to drop by the office will be the absolute worst one. It's the same principle as if you drop by a friend's house unannounced, you will catch them on the toilet. I can guarantee you that's, well, never mind, that sounded bad. In the shower, let's go with that. I've never had anybody ever do a drop off when I've got nothing going on. It's always right when we've released the breakdown and we're dealing with the hundreds of emails. And it's also just awkward. The same thing with people doing stunts, and the little, I dressed up like a FedEx guy and got onto the Warner Brothers lot and snuck in. It's horribly awkward. And this day and age, honestly, if you are going to put that much energy into it, find my email address. It's out there. Email me something. I would rather that than the awkward in person.
You guys are playing this game well. Okay, an actor posting information on Facebook about a project they are auditioning for.
Inappropriate.
Inappropriate.
Okay, tell us why. That's interesting.
Well, there's a lot of projects that have huge confidentiality around them. I work on one, and you can get it's actually you can get into trouble legally. So I just avoid it at all costs. Just don't do it.
And it just makes you look cheesy and
And that.
Yeah, you're not just putting something out there for your friends to see or your classmates, to show that you got an audition. Everyone in the world sees everything that's on Facebook. So if it's, and you never know how someone's going to perceive that. Everyone's different. Everyone interprets things differently. Maybe it's, she's posting 2 seconds after she walked out of the audition that she had an audition. Is this what we're going to have to deal with this like during the pilot, during the series? Is this going to be a problem for production? Is it going to be a problem for PR, publicity, the agents, whoever? It just, some things you can keep to yourself.
A lot of our shows have very rabid fans, and bloggers will pick things up, things will take on a life of its own, which could result in you getting sued, for that standpoint. Even also just the other side thing that I come across a lot, and I don't know if you guys do as well, don't bitch about your audition on Facebook, or
because we read them.
don't bitch about the casting office, don't bitch about your agent or manager, don't say anything that you wouldn't say to our faces, because we will remember that, and that's not going to help you.
Next one, actors being offended if they audition for the associate rather than the casting director. Under what circumstances does the associate do the auditioning?
A lot.
It doesn't
A
matter.
lot. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I
You're-
still to the-
It's The Office.
You're going to get bias or you're not going to get bias. And
If every casting director is aware that their associates are doing the auditions when they're doing the auditions. So there's no reason, to feel anything but the same that you would feel for going into.
it can,
for
yes,
the
be a
casting.
pre-read. It can be the first audition where you then will have to come back for the casting director. You'll then have to come back for the producers. You'll then have to come back for a callback. Sometimes you get put through the ringer. There are also times that you'll come in, you'll do a pre-read with me. I've taped it, and that's what lands you the job. That's it. That's the end of the road. You don't know. It's different every single time, and yeah.
God, everything is like inappropriate with you people.
Well, and with that too, whether you're reading with me or with Howard, that shouldn't affect your choices or your delivery or the character that you've created. You walk in, you're like, son of a bitch, it's Troy again? I want to read with Howard, he's nice. Or I don't know. But yeah, don't let who you're affecting with, affect your choice as an actor. It shouldn't matter.
Having your agent or manager call for feedback after your audition.
Appropriate.
Oh,
it's how
that's
they
good
do
to
their
know.
job.
Yeah.
Appropriate.
That's good to know. Good to know.
But it can be, I think it could be like levels if it's, a one-line co-star and your line was, I'll have a cookie, or fine, or stop. It's, there are levels of too much sometimes.
It's common for when an agent or manager just signs someone and they just, they don't really mind one way or another if they're getting the role. They just want to know how that person's doing in a room.
Facebook requesting a casting person to begin a relationship. A few of you are appropriate.
I probably won't say yes, but
Oh, well, that's not
try.
fair.
Well, it's
I would say if it's offered there, if you read in an article or you're at a workshop or a play or something, it's like Facebook me or I love meeting people on Facebook. I love meeting new people. If it's put out there that somebody is open to that, then I think a friend request is fine. If you've never had contact with that person or anything, then no, then it's a little.
I think
It's
it's
a little
case by
weird.
case. I know some people who work in casting who have Facebook to stay in touch with actors, and then there's others like myself who it's 100%, personal. So
Like for me, it's just personal. It's people that I'm friends with. I have actors on there who I'm friends with after we've developed a relationship. But if I don't know you at all, then yeah.
If I could segue real quick on the Facebook thing, it's when you're doing your stuff to promote yourself or promote your show, everyone goes to Facebook first and sends like an event evite or invite to a show or play. I very rarely see those things because like Facebook goes through so many changes and it's so cluttered that things get lost. I will say, like, while we're talking about the social media aspect of stuff, I love Twitter for that reason. It's impersonal. I don't find it, it invades in my personal life privacy. It's out there. You're like in a play. Tag Troy. Hey, I'm in this play on Friday. Can you come? And I see all of that stuff, and I love going to plays and improv shows and stand-up things. I think that's a great way to get somebody's attention or let somebody know that you're doing something that you might not have a personal connection with. You're not invading on their stuff. It's just kind of there, then it's gone with Twitter. But you see it. Whereas Facebook, I think, is a little different and more personal.
Good answers. Dressing in character for an audition. Gohar, you have The Walking Dead. This should be good.
Audition. I don't audition zombies.
Appropriate.
Levels.
It
Levels.
does.
It's all about
Yes.
knowing where the line is.
How do you know what the line is?
Don't come fully dressed as you would be on. Look, okay, if you're coming in for someone who's a lawyer or someone professional, then you're a man. You wear a suit. I'm sorry, you wear a suit. That's okay. Don't come in dressed in scrubs for a doctor. You don't have to. I think that's really what it is. I think, or sometimes we do period pieces, and the women get so beautiful, and some of them just go a little over the top with it. Or I feel like after the audition, they spend most of the time on their wardrobe and hair as opposed to the material itself. So I think, to a certain level, you want to be appropriate, for what you're reading for, yes, absolutely,
It should
absolutely.
suggest the character you're coming in
Yeah.
for, but it shouldn't overshadow your performance.
Yeah.
I remember doing a pilot, I don't know, it was 4 or 5 years ago, and there was a character who was this, 18, 19-year-old guy who wore nothing but, tidy whities and a bathrobe that was always open. I probably had 8 or 10 guys that came dressed like that to the audition. It's like, hello, close that robe, please.
In auditions, unless specifically needed, which is very, very rarely, I don't need to see your genitalia. And yet I have. So, but exactly, the suggesting of it, okay, I've worked on shows, I've cast strippers. So yes, I do need you to come in on something form-fitting. We're usually going to be very specific on roles like that. Please come in bikini top or something like that. Also, when in doubt, ask. You can actually call us or have your representatives call us before the audition, and we can answer that.
Okay, thanks, guys. Feeling like your audition's not going well and asking to restart. They all think it's appropriate.
It's your time in the room. Use it wisely, but professionally. If you're 2 lines from the end of a 3-page monologue, and then you're like, But if you're 2 lines in, it's like, okay, you got off on the wrong foot. We get it.
And I wouldn't use like the restart to try to take the temperature of the room, see what the writers are thinking. Like, is this really going well? Oh, it's not. Bail out. Bail out. Hey, can I do it? Can I go again? No, but I mean, people are gonna flub a line. You're gonna start. Maybe you're not in the right place for your start, and you're like, hey, we know. Let's start over. And yeah.
But you can't keep doing it, multiple times. And it becomes awkward, and then at that point, you've sort of lost. We feel like you've lost control. So
It looks unprofessional.
It looks unprofessional. What are you going to be like on set? We have to think about these things. So you definitely, really use it only when you really feel like you need to, and use it at the top of the scene.
And don't beat yourself up. Like, okay, get it together. Come on, motherfucker. We've seen it happen. Because how you not just how you perform the scene, but how you carry yourself in the room is also being taken into account. And if after every you need to stop and start over, that's just like a take on set. And if you have to beat yourself up after every take to get back into it and be like, okay, now I'm ready. Let's go.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, if I just an example. I mean, I had an actor who came in and did a scene and was great, and I just wanted to do it again. I just wanted to have another take. We were hiring off tape, and he did it again, and he just quickly said, "Can I start over?" And then it became like 3 takes in, and then he was just flummoxed. And it wasn't, so it's that's really just what's happening sort
It
of
didn't help him.
psychologically, and not, nothing wrong with him as an actor. So.
Yeah. Okay. Calling a casting office to tell them you'd like to volunteer to be a reader. Cool. Everyone said it was appropriate except for you, Troy. But first I want to hear, Eric, that's appropriate in your office? Do you use actor for readers?
We can't use you, but it's okay to call and ask.
Why can't you use us?
I mean, we used to have actors for readers and interns, and we had a whole great thing going. And then there was a big lawsuit with like some interns who worked on a film, and then so the state of California really, it's a whole long story. But basically, the studios told us we couldn't have unpaid help whatsoever, and so we asked the shows to pay for help, and they said no. So they, yeah.
And Troy, is that the reason it's inappropriate for you?
Yeah, mainly, yes. Because now if we have to have an intern or any unpaid help, they have to be in school and earning credit. It can only be for a certain amount of time. And we like to do the reading ourselves, either Howard or myself, because that's how we, create a connection with the actor, which is also important when, obviously you're acting in a scene, is creating a connection with the other actor. We like to see how you do that with us, which we would lose if it were a reader. But kind of along those lines, we used to use interns a lot, and I think interns are fantastic for people that actually do want to help out and learn that side of the business. But when, calling to ask for an internship or to be a reader is actually, hey, look at me, I can audition for a role. It's kind of along those lines of what you're putting out there as an actor that we spoke about before.
Well, it'll probably be a waste of your time unless you actually already have an established relationship with us. Again, if you call and you do it, that's why I said it's appropriate, it's fine. It's probably a waste of your time unless you do directly know me, know which shows we're working on, and if we're able to use readers or not.
Mike, could I come to
You
your
never
office and work
know.
as a reader?
I'm sorry, we're full.
But I mean, if you do have a connection with somebody in an office or a cast director is open to having interns or readers, it's an invaluable experience, and that's actually how I became Howard's associate was interning, and
I did
it
that
changed
when
my
I
life.
moved here.
You were also an intern?
I started as an intern. I don't know any person who works in casting who didn't start as an
I
intern.
started as an intern.
So
I
now that
did
that's
that.
done with, how do people going to get started? Now there's no interns.
Good question.
We're working on that.
Got it. Okay, cool. This is the last of our appropriate or inappropriate questions. Let's talk about postcard follow-ups.
Wait, what?
People sending in postcards just to let you know what we're doing throughout the year.
Totally appropriate.
Totally appropriate.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Let's move on to actor questions. Can we give them a round of applause for playing this game very well?
Can we keep these?
Yeah,
This would be great during a session, wouldn't it?
that was not appropriate.
I won't. I'm kidding. It was a joke. Total, all these faces out here just went like.
So this is the right time to continue filling out questions here or at home, emailing them again to livestream@sagfoundation.org. Here's our first question. This is to anybody who wants to join in. If you're going out for a smaller role, when is the right time to try and stand out? And when is the right time to just compliment the star of the scene?
Unless you're the star of the scene, don't do it.
Don't-
Well, no, I should have. If you're a guest star or a co-star, I spoke too soon. I mean, you're really there to move the story along, and very rarely it's about you.
Exactly.
So know
Focus on
know
the
your
character.
boundaries.
Yeah, focus on the character. Do what's appropriate for the scene and what's needed for it. Generally, no, you're not going to be the star of the scene. You're there to move, exactly as Eric said, to move the story along. There are going to be some roles that are going to be the giant standout, and they're going to be a great chance for you to showcase. But, it shouldn't be about you. It should be about the character.
And the director will tell you.
But if it's a very small part, just a few lines, I think you just have to take a look at the scene. Is what is the character doing? Are they facilitating something? You just have to be smart about it. If you're handing someone a paper and saying, "Here you go, sir," that's, don't try to do something with that line. Just be real. I think that's really a great tip, actually, for those small roles, because those are the hardest to audition, and that's why people are always trying to do something with them.
Yeah, if you're you're a nurse and you're handing the doctor the thing, like here's your rounds. You don't need to create this whole backstory of, well, I actually hate this doctor, so I'm going to give him some attitude, and here's your rounds. You just serve the story.
Do you, as casting associates, have relationships with small boutique agents, or do you have to go to the top agents for pilots?
All the above. We need to work with every single person in town, from top and bottom, because we don't know where the next big one's going to come from. We need that, needle in a haystack. And, I've had series regulars come from the top big agencies. I've had them come from the smaller boutique agencies. I've had them come from self-direct actors. We've also worked with plenty of casting. Every pilot that I've worked on, we've had multiple cities and multiple casting directors in multiple cities. For example, with Raising Hope, Lucas Neff was found in Chicago. Lucas Neff is the lead of Raising Hope, for those of you who don't know. They literally will turn over every single leaf that we can.
My agent has begrudgingly deemed pilot season offer-only season. Is there truth with this? Are
No.
you still seeking relative unknowns for
Always.
series regulars?
Always.
Absolutely.
Always, always.
Appropriate.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Can you all tell us about any pilots you're already hired to cast? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, that's
I mean,
it.
it's
You're
still
welcome.
kind of early. We only have, we have one pilot so far.
We're working on one pilot now, Under the Dome, CBS.
We don't have one yet.
We're in discussions.
I'm so grateful not to have a pilot right now.
How likely are you to watch auditions on tape? And from there, how often do you bring people in from tape into the rooms?
You mean unrequested auditions on tape or
Let's go both. Let's go unrequested. If an actor wants to get in the room, they think they're right for the role, and they don't have an audition, they self-tape.
Okay.
We usually won't watch it. If we don't request it, we're probably not going to watch it. Unless it's a pilot where we watch everything, but episodic, I guess we're talking about pilots. So, maybe.
I think there's many ways to answer this question. I think that it would be, you have to, if you're going to do something like that, you have to use that very sparingly. It has to be a situation where maybe you've tried to put yourself in front of an office many times, or your agent has, or something like that. And you have to present it to the casting office in a certain way, as in, listen, I've really wanted to meet you. I know how busy you are, so I went ahead and put myself on tape, and if you have the time and would take a look at it, I think I would respond to something like that, but you can't keep doing that then to that office for a minute. That's it. It's your one time that you do that as an introduction to an office that you haven't been able to get in the room with. I think it's become, I don't know about you guys, but the unrequested self-tape during pilot season has sort of taken over our lives, and it's hours of extra viewing time because we have to watch them. And most of those people, 98% of those people, are wrong, which is the reason why they didn't get in the door in the first place. So, it's a tricky situation.
If you're right for the role, perhaps, yes, but you're taking the time to send in a tape hoping that somebody watches it. Make sure the tape's as good as it can be. And I don't mean just in performance or your choices. Make sure the lighting is right. Make sure that we can hear you, because the sound is great. If you send in, I mean, a lot of times that stuff matters. And in pilot season, where it is tape after tape after tape, every office is different. Maybe you do slip one in and yours is just the next one watched because they watch all of them. Maybe if they recognize and they're like, oh, I don't recognize this name, I'm not going to watch it. But in the chance that they do, and we can't understand you, or we can't see you, or whatever it is, what good is that doing you? If you don't identify yourself or list a contact number on the tape or whatever, because you don't know if these things are being downloaded and then sent on a disc or something, or they're watching it from a YouTube file or from that email. If your name isn't on, if the thing is, Walking Dead Audition, and that's how the file downloads, or Audition, or New Audition, or it doesn't have a date, it doesn't have your name on it, a lot of times we won't know where it comes from. So make sure that you're taking those things into consideration, not just in unsolicited tapes, but when you're sending in a tape for anything.
Make sure that your grandmother can open it and download it. And I actually mean that completely seriously, and that it's an easy to transport file. I personally am very open to watching self-tapes, especially as long as it's sparingly, and if it's from somebody they've sent along their headshot and resume too, and it's like, well, you know what, they might be right for it. Yeah, I'll watch a quick second of it. If it tells me 22 hours to download, I'm out.
Yeah, you don't need to shoot it on the red. It doesn't need to be 1080i.
But it does need to be a good quality, and put your best foot forward. Don't just take the iPhone and, less is not always more.
Here's an interesting question from an agent, and it's about quotes. And so I'd like you, when you answer, to please explain to the audience what a quote is. When do you help raise the quote for an actor?
In this economy, nobody's getting raises unless it's already figured into your deal. People are working for below quotes.
Yeah, our shows generally don't pay them.
Eric, what is a quote?
Well, basically a quote is what the last thing you earned. What's based on the role. There's pilot quotes and there's episodic quotes and day rates, and so if it's for an episode of television and we hire you for a day, your quote would be the last thing you earned the last time you worked for a day on a similar show. So for when I'm hiring someone for a day, on the Mentalist, we'll ask what your quote is, and say a few months ago you worked on, I don't know, CSI, and they paid you $12.50 for the day. That's your quote. And so we will every show is different. Sometimes we can give you a raise to maybe like $1,300 and raise your quote that way. Or if it's a pilot, you could have a series regular quote, which is either the last time you were booked as a series regular or the last time you tested, because if you test, you establish a quote. That's that. Or you work on a show that has no money and doesn't let you pay, and quotes don't matter because you pay scale.
We try as much as possible to match quotes these days, whenever we can. But sometimes you have an actor coming in for a small part, and maybe their day quote was for something a little bit more significant in the previous one, and unfortunately we're budgeted on that role for what we are budgeted for, and that's that. So.
What is the best way for someone who does not have representation to approach a casting office once they've heard of a project they think they'd be great at and would like to be brought into audition?
We have a Dropbox.
Dropbox just outside the door, right? Because as one of you were saying earlier, you don't want to walk in and catch somebody in a bad mood or at the wrong time.
You never want to. Usually, I don't know about other casting offices. We have a Dropbox. We have a buzzer on our door, so we'll not get you in anyway. But joking. No, whether our door's open or closed, there's a Dropbox, and when someone comes by to submit themselves for a specific role, we will always say, just put your headshot in the Dropbox with a little post-it saying what show and what role you want to be considered for.
Yeah, regular mail works. We get it. We get our mail every day. We're on a studio lot, so you can't just walk up either. But yeah, regular mail. A lot of people have email addresses that are published and stuff. And if you feel that is your role and you have to be seen for this role, then you're going to do what you're going to do, but know that it could be received differently by different offices.
Well, and do your research. Find out, who's working on the show. First and foremost, find out who the casting director is, who the casting associate is, who the casting assistant is. Find out if they are attending showcases, if they are attending, conducting workshops. I know, so here at SAG, you guys do workshops. Find out.
Oh, they do this amazing thing called the Casting Access Project. Isn't that right, Rochelle? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Which has been wonderful. I've been lucky.
they're fantastic.
Thank you, SAG-AFTRA, for having me in for that. That's a great way to come and meet and for me to see your work. That's the biggest thing. For me, especially, I would, instead of just your headshot and resume, email me your demo link. I need to see footage. I need to see you in action. Get out there, be doing the plays. I think I can speak for all of us.
Yeah.
We go.
I agree that having an online demo reel there's no reason you shouldn't have one. Obviously, if you have material to put up that you're proud of, that's key. Don't put one up just to put one up with bad material. That's only going to that's not going to help you at all. But if you do have something that you're really proud of, it should be online, and there should be a link available. And I as much as possible, I watch online reels because it just sort of helps me make sure that headshots and resumes are very misleading. So it helps me make sure that someone's tonally a good fit for a part. So.
Speaking of which, do you recommend having separate reels for drama and comedy? Also, what about appearances from musical theater in light of shows like Glee?
I think it's good to have separate reels. You can also have a combined reel, but if I'm working on a multicam half hour and somebody, as a pitch sends me your, gut-wrenching death scene from Grey's Anatomy, not really going to help me, and vice versa. So that's up to your representatives to be smart about what kind of tape they are sending in.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, how does casting for kids differ from adults for pilots? How open are you to booking a child with little or no resume? And what are you looking for when calling a child into casting for a pilot? Thank you.
Children, usually when you're casting children, you're seeing children with little or no resumes. Because you don't know where you're going to find a child who's,
And the good ones are already working.
There you go. And when it comes to children, take what we see for adults and multiply that, by a lot.
It's all about volume.
It's all about volume. You're reading hundreds of kids, especially when they're very young, 5 or 6 years old, and that's that's really where we just kind of go to town and see as many as we can.
Yeah, for us in pilot season, because we are seeing so many people, I think it's going to be like a sliding thing. You're going to start off, with the more experienced people, the people that have had, series regular credits on their resume, perhaps. But know that this is going to be a 2, 3, 4. Sometimes in the world of Disney pilots, where it took 1.5 years to cast Hannah Montana, it could be a long process, not just limited to the season, the pilot season. So we're going to see kids and adults alike, people with huge resumes and people with zero resume. If you look right for the role and you come in and prove yourself to be right for the role in an audition, then or a pre-read or producer session or whatever, then it's going to keep progressing for you, because we're looking for somebody to fill that role, not somebody to have a great resume and be like, oh, they could fit this also, necessarily.
I assume that question came from a parent, so I'll add one thing. I think it's great for children to be prepared for their auditions, but not over-prepared, and to let them sort of just be who they are naturally, and because parents do a lot of coaching, and a lot of times kids are over-coached, so just a little note.
It's okay to go to a coach for sure, but you don't want to be married to those choices that the coach gives you. That when a casting director or a writer or producer or director gives you a note, that you can't break that habit that you learned from a coach. I guess that works for adults too. And if you go to coach or class or your acting friend who gives you advice, don't be married to choices that a coach gives you.
I wish you guys had your signs ready for this one. What do you think of actors who crash auditions to be proactive?
No.
Dear God, get away, leave the industry, never call us again.
Really? That sounds fun.
That's never okay.
It's the way to get not only not seen for the role, but
Ever.
blacklisted.
Really?
And I
Like
think
absolutely blacklisted.
those actors think that we just won't notice because we'll have so many people going on. Oh, we check when
We
people
have
are
session
not.
sheets.
Really?
And when they're not on there, we confirm that they were set up. So
We chose who to set up. We know who
know
we
who
set
we
up.
set up.
We sent out the appointments. We did the confirmations. We typed the sessions. We're running the sessions. We know you're not supposed to be here.
Oh, and also too, there could be 2 days of casting, and because you crash on the first day, we might have been planning to see you on the second day, but now, you crashed.
now we
And
just don't like you anymore.
Now it's another awkward thing.
Do you confront the actors?
just bad
Or do
manners.
you just let them audition and
We
blacklist them?
politely ask them to leave.
Well, and usually we're full. I mean, honestly, we don't have time to fit it in. Even if we're doing we're seeing 200 people that day, but my choice is to walk up to my producer and say, "Hi, did you need lunch today?" No, because there's an actor who decided they would be right for us. You're fine not eating, right? Like it's not
Guaranteed,
gonna-
a crasher will be an awful actor if you let them audition. Just guaranteed. Guaranteed they'll be terrible.
I have to say,
Are you a crasher?
I used to be. There are some, and no offense to any of the talent reps who are here or watching at home, but there are some talent reps out there who will suggest to their actors.
We know that, and we know who they
And
are.
we know who they are, too.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
Got it. So in which case, it's not the actor's fault. You guys, it's okay. Okay, what advice would you give for actors to improve or create relationships with casting people?
A lot of it, I would say, part of it is, as far as the networking standpoint, is knowing how to do that. Also realizing that we're people when it comes down to it. If you do see us out and about, it's, I think, great to say hi, but knowing what time and when it's appropriate. I've been followed into restrooms before. Not appropriate. But knowing the right ways to network and knowing when we're on the clock, when we're not on the clock, how to come after us, inviting me to a play, something that you're really proud of and it's a great production, absolutely, invite me to that, come out. That's a great way to foster the relationship. Again, finding out the places that we're coming out and speaking to, that we're working at, getting to know us in that way. But the best part for me, anyway, is being masters of your craft. Being masters of your craft and decent human beings.
Yeah, the way of improving a relationship with a casting director is to be dependable. Every time we call you in or come to see your play, always be at the top of your game. Every audition is just that. That's your job as an actor is to audition. It's great when you think about well, this is a series regular role. This is gonna be so great. I'll be able to afford that house, or I'll be able to buy that extra large fish tank that I've had my eye on, or something. But the job should be in the room. So if you become an actor that comes in and just auditions so, that's not really building the professional relationship with the casting director. But if you're the guy that comes in or girl comes in and nails it every time, and it's like, this guy's always dependable. It doesn't always book or get a callback, but he's always solid. That's somebody that we're going to remember and want to see for other stuff.
So this piggybacks on that question. It was a question that was just asked of Sharon Bialy, actually. Somebody wrote in and said, suppose I see you in the supermarket. Can I approach you and introduce myself? What do you guys think? Appropriate or inappropriate?
I think it's fine as long as you do it in an appropriate manner,
Well, what's appropriate? I want
Hi,
to throw some
I'm
fruit at you.
Mike Johnson. I'm an actor. I know the shows you work on. I really love them. Would it be okay if I sent you my picture and resume? Sure.
Well, and you can tell where we're at. If I'm babysitting, my friend's little children or something like that, and they're crying and screaming, probably not the best time. If I'm in the restroom, not the best time. But the way you would want to be introduced by somebody. I would say flip the tables. And would you feel comfortable having a fan come up to you at that moment, or somebody?
We're actors, yes. We would.
Well, there's a little actor in all of us. We all want, we all want fans.
Yeah, just normal human interaction. You see somebody at a movie theater, you're going to see the same thing. Like, hey, like Ty was saying. Like, I watch your shows. I just want to say, it's nice to meet you.
But then I think when you make a relationship with someone in casting, and you have their email, that's when sometimes I think people go a little too. You can't email for every single. You mentioned this for every single role that comes up. Hey, can I? Because now you have a relationship with them, and it's a little awkward. So just don't. Just do it again, like someone said, the way you would want to be treated.
Well, with that too, you just say you met, a casting person at a supermarket. You're not instantly best friends, so you're not going to go home and Facebook request them and then send them an email and be like, "Hey, have fun at work on Monday morning. I'm around if you need me," type stuff. It's an introduction, and you have met somebody. You've met a new friend, and that could be something that could be cultivated over time. But I know as actors, it's such especially people starting off or aspiring. There's such this rush to get that first thing, and I met somebody at the supermarket. This is going to be my in, and then you bombard them with either gifts or letters or emails or Facebook stuff. It's just know that things can take time.
Cool. How much weight, if any, does one's star meter ranking on IMDb carry?
Zero.
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 Yeah, 0.
Okay, cool. That's honest. Let's see. Can each of you please give us one tip that would help us actors on pilot season?
Be patient.
Do your homework. Do research. Obviously, hardship with pilots is you've never seen the show, obviously. However, great part about pilots is more often than not the scripts are available, are out there, available on Screenplay Online, etc. Read the script. Do the homework on who is the writer, who is the director, who is the network, so you can get an idea of what the tone is. If you're coming in for a comedy, okay, well, who wrote it? You're trying to get the jokes, you're trying to get the sense of humor. Well, you realize, oh, it's the creators of Will and Grace. It's Max Muchnick and David Cohen. Okay, so I get their basic idea. That'll help out. Doing the research on the director. Oh, they did Lost. Okay, so that'll probably be some of the twists and turns here. This is how they like to work with it. Do your research, find out who's already attached. You know, are you playing somebody's child? Oh, okay. Well, it's Laurie Metcalf is playing the mom. Okay, well, cool. So I know how she's going to probably be playing this role. That'll help me make the educated, informed decisions.
And like the day before your audition isn't the time to learn all this stuff. As actors, you want to be well versed in what's out there. So you want to know Mark Chandrowski's directing style by watching Big Bang Theory. So when you have an audition for his pilot, you're going to know kind of those moments. You're going to know that it's a multi-camera sitcom, most likely, and know that that's different than a single camera. So it's going to be different than The Office or Parks and Rec or whatever. But yeah, cramming. You wouldn't cram for a test. The night before by watching episodes of the show, reading the script, learning the filmography of the director. You want to be up on that stuff now because that's the business you've chosen to be in.
And after you've done all that and you're going into your audition, let that all go and let it be, just be in that moment and really think of it as an opportunity to do what you love, which is to act. Don't think about it as an audition, as a job interview, so that all of that other extra fluff that comes with pilot season and that stress, it's not what it's about when you're in the room.
We want you to be great. Every actor that comes in, I want you to be the one. Because if you're the one, my job is done, right? And if you go on to become some giant star, again, I look like a genius.
Yeah. What I always say, and exactly what Gohar said, that is so important the moment you walk into the room. I always encourage actors, before you start, always take that moment to take the breath. To let go of all the stress, the fears, the expectations, the choices, etc. Just to have fun, be in the moment, let it be that real, organic process.
Just like we all did back in that hallway. Huge collective breath.
We were drinking shots back there.
Mike, it's interesting that you brought up reading scripts, because this question says, where can I find the scripts for new pilots? For the TV show Arrow, for example, I would like to know what will be the new roles for season 2. Where can I find the script for season 2?
Well, that would be lovely. We're not going to have that until we begin season 2, which hopefully get picked up. Episodically speaking, you're not going to get a script. Even if you're coming in for a major guest star role, that ain't going to happen. Especially for a lot of shows like Arrow or any plot-driven shows. We've got that on major lockdown. A lot of our sides will sometimes not even be from the script.
Yeah, you won't even be reading any material that you would ever act.
A lot of time the script isn't done yet, too.
Yeah. Scripts, again, especially with episodic television, they're getting turned around. We're lucky if we get the writer's draft, on day 1 of pre-production, which is 5 or 8 days before we begin shooting. So, yes, sometimes there's ideas of characters that are coming down the line that we might start working on or start thinking about. But with episodic television, it's not going to happen. As far as pilot season goes, a lot of those scripts do get posted online, on Screenplay Online. You'll oftentimes need the code, but that will often be listed on the breakdown itself, or else an agent or manager or a well-connected friend could help you out with that.
I thought of another tip.
Okay, great. Yeah, please. Tip us.
Turn off your cell phones when you go into the room. Nothing, because it's doing you a favor too, but nothing will kill the energy in a room when you're doing a read than a cell phone going off.
Vibrate is not off. We can hear that.
Because not only does it
that's
mess
good
you
too.
up in your performance, but we're gonna have to start again. And the writers get out of it. Yes, it's insane. But also that's picked up by these cameras, and these days of technology, and everybody wanting to have a say. A lot of times those tapes from your audition, producer, pre-read, just casting alone or whatever, are being uploaded and sent to networks or studios, or the director who's location scouting for the pilot that's going to shoot in Vancouver. Who knows? So your phone vibrating could mess up that tape.
So, as you know, I love angry questions. So here's one.
It's his fault.
Do you contact an actor directly if the agent or manager is not cooperative/difficult when the role is right?
What?
What?
If the agent is difficult, will you call me directly if I'm right for the role?
I've never had that experience with an agent, especially when you're giving them an appointment. That's the best.
No, that's a problem, I think. That agent is not getting the appointments, they're being difficult.
Well, I've I'm not gonna. I can't say that I've ever had an agent being difficult with that standpoint. I've had definitely
'cause they're
last
nice to
minute.
you.
Well, I've definitely had last minute sessions that have come up. That'll come up after hours. That if it's especially pilot season, I've been in the office at 1:00 in the morning and know that this is for 10:00 the next morning because it's that crazy at the moment. I've definitely reached out to actors directly. I'll, of course, email and try to loop in the agent, but realizing that they may not be there, yeah, I'll go, when it's, forgive the expression, but balls to the wall, I'll do everything. I mean, I've even logged on to Facebook chat and, hit people up that way. I generally haven't found like an agent or manager that would ever say, no, I'm not sending my client in, because they wouldn't be making money, and they're here to make
and
money.
these days, everyone's checking their email. I mean, all agents and managers are on their emails all night. They're seeing those things.
Wait,
so.
before
And
we move past this, I want to ask you, what if the agent doesn't feel the actor is capable of the role that you've accepted them for, and they're protecting that actor?
Then they're doing their job and I leave it alone.
Because that's reasonable, I think.
Well, yeah, again, and that's probably not anything that's ever come to me, they will manage us in a nice way and hopefully lie. They would basically just say you're not available for some reason, which we would trust them on that standpoint. Hopefully your agent or manager honestly does have that standpoint because, casting works both ways. You come in and you're awful. For me, I'm probably not going to blacklist you that time. I'm probably not going to be jumping up and down to see you again. But, you bring me in enough times, unfortunately, I only have so many slots available that I can see somebody, and there are, as we've talked about, hundreds of thousands of actors possible for each role.
But we call actors in all the time and they pass. And we don't know if the actor is actually passed or the agent or manager has passed for them for whatever reason, So.
One thing on that, like if with Breakdown Express being utilized, if we see that an agent hasn't opened like an audition that we've sent out in like an unreasonable amount of time, or reasonable, I don't know whichever way, reasonable or unreasonable. Say it's like hours and it hasn't been opened up. We can see that it hasn't been opened and be like, okay, well maybe this agent is homesick or nobody's there or they're closed or it's a holiday, so then we'll contact an actor.
If somebody, an agent or an actor, passes on the audition, is that frustrating as a casting person because you wanted to see them, or is it just part of the game and you're used
It
to
depends who it is and what the role is and how passionate either we are or those above us are. A network or studio may really want us to get somebody in, or our EP, and they've passed. So we may have to really dig in and make sure, number one, that the client has actually seen the material and is actually passing. I mean, we can't twist somebody's arm to come in, but if an agent or manager is passing out of hand unreasonably, we feel it's unreasonably, it's a great role, it's a multi-episode arc, we're going to do everything we can to try to get that person in.
Do you take headshots and resumes through snail mail? And if so, can we put on the envelopes that we attended this foundation event on the envelope to get your attention?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
We open up all of our mail. I don't always look to see where it came from. So like writing that on the envelope is important for our office because we do open up everything. But yeah, sending in headshots and resumes is fantastic.
For an initial audition, if you have tattoos and it doesn't specify no tattoos on the breakdown, is it necessary to come in with the tattoos airbrushed?
No.
No, show me those tattoos.
Can we get a more general question?
I think it's a little more specific. Let me
If
just
you're
keep reading.
if you're coming in to play the girl next door and you have a tramp stamp and big gauges in your ears, and then probably you need to cover that stuff up. But if it works for the role, then fine.
Yeah, it goes back to suggesting the role. So yeah, if you're playing a Harvard law professor, maybe you don't have face tattoos. You want to have those airbrushed if you have face tattoos.
Don't
or
get
if you
face
have
tattoos.
If you have like sleeves.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't have face tattoos if you're
Common
an actor.
sense. Common sense is
Another
always
note.
is the watchword.
But yeah, if you have like a sleeve of tattoos, wear a long sleeve shirt, and no one's going to know that you have tattoos.
There's another question from an agent. Could you talk about how you get the budgets for the episodes? Does the budget change, or are you booking? I'm not sure. I don't think I read that right. How does that affect you? How do you gauge who is getting what?
In terms of money, like per role?
Yeah.
Well, we create a budget after we read. We have a budget for our guest cast that is from episode to episode. And then
Wait,
when
so
we
let me
read a
understand. So you
script-
have a budget, a regular budget, and then a budget for your guest cast.
No, we have a guest cast budget, which is
Okay.
the amount that is intended for the guest
see,
cast
okay.
each episode. When we read a script, we determine which of those roles are going to be guest star roles, which of those roles we are going to be budgeted for co-star monies, depending on the extent of the role, the importance of the role, etc. And after doing that, when you read a script, you know if a character appears just in one scene or in two scenes in the same location, it's probably going to be a day. You sort of figure it out what you're going to end up spending on each role. It's as a preliminary, which we present to our line producers. And as the episode goes on and the script changes, that changes. Sometimes, things change depending on actor that you really want, who maybe won't work for that monies, et cetera. But there is a preliminary sheet that we create so we know what we're doing as we're going in that episode.
Well, and each show is definitely different. First season show, we almost always have our hands completely tied behind our backs. If you're working on a cable show, hands tied behind our backs, especially, and we hate saying, oh, it's the economy, but we don't generally have, discretionary funds, and I'm not making a percentage like, if I save money on this episode and, cheap out on every actor, I don't get a cut. It's I wish, but that's not us. We don't generally have a lot of stuff to play with, especially a show like mine, shooting up in Vancouver. We're only allotted generally, for example, like 3 guest stars for each episode. The rest has to come out of Canada, and that becomes a very different, interesting experience when you have a large recurring cast. That may have different amounts and different everything like that. So it can be really tough, and generally when we're negotiating with an agent or manager, it's not us playing hardball, or it's usually relatively simple on our parts of, this is what we have, this is your counter. Well, let me go talk to my line producer, and it's either going to be a yes or no.
Right. We also try to set standards for our show within our budget, as in this is how much we pay a day player, a guest star day actor. This is it. In order to be fair to everyone, this is what we're going to pay the top, for example.
And the only time we'll go outside of that budget is if we're going to go to studio or network for breakage. If they want to bring in a name actor that they feel is going to bring eyes to the set, then we go and we have to ask for breakage for that talent. And sometimes we'll get it and sometimes we won't, and that will make the difference as to whether or not we'll go out to that name actor.
This is a question for Eric Souliere. When casting a show like American Horror Story, where do you find such phenomenal, differently abled actors like Adelaide?
Oh, that's the fun part. Well, specifically Adelaide last season, she was an actress named Jamie Brewer, and the role was the daughter of Jessica Lange, and she has Down syndrome. And basically, it wasn't the first time. Can you hear me? What's that noise? Oh,
Somebody's phone.
sorry. This wasn't the first time we had to search for actors with Down syndrome, so we knew which route to take and who to go to. And specifically for Jamie, she came from, there's a wonderful organization. The name's escaping me. I'm not going to embarrass myself and try and think of it right now, but run by a woman named Gail Williamson, and she kind of works with all actors with Down syndrome, and she sent them to us, and Jamie was one of those actors, and she was wonderful, and that's where they came from. That's where she came from. But like I said, that's the fun part of the job. We can, on a procedural, you kind of have the same kind of roles every week, but on a show like American Horror Story, we get to look for the. I'm trying to be politically correct. The different kind of roles, and I don't know. That just makes it more fun. It's like 50% of avenues we've already gone down, because, I mean, we worked on Nip Tuck where we had to look for a lot of different kind of people. So we kind of know what to do, and then there's 50% of exploring new ones and finding those people. And I don't know, like this season we had the character of Pepper, who, again, I can't think of the politically correct term for what she is, but basically she's referred to as a pinhead. Anyway, you know, when we're looking for that, that's obviously mostly prosthetic, so we were given very specific guidelines as to what our prosthetics team needed physically in terms of the actor. I'm talking in circles. Did that answer the question?
I think you did. You enjoy casting those different.
Yes, I very much. Those are the fun ones.
So we're approaching our 15-minute wrap-up soon. Before I continue with questions, just to make sure I don't run out of time, is there anything that you guys would like to leave us with? Is there anything you want to tell us about the business, your career, our career? I know that's a hard one.
You got to work harder than anybody else. There are too many people here trying to do this. This is the only profession I know of where people from all over the world see it somewhere on television, on screen, on the stage, and go, hey, I could do that, and uproot their lives and come here in New York and say, I'm going to do this with no training, you know? Nobody goes by a construction site and says, I could frame a building. I'm moving to the construction capital of the world, right? So you're competing with so many different people, you know? Actors and people on reality shows, anyone that's done anything that's put you in the public eye. If you do something that puts you in the public eye, good or bad, you will probably get the opportunity to act and maybe record an album. You know, that is the way that this society works, because it's a heat-seeking missile business. They want to make money off of you at any cost, you know? So you need, as an actor, you need to work harder than anyone else at your craft. Good actors work. There is not some giant pocket of Meryl Streep's and Al Pacino in the middle of Iowa that can't get a break, you know? So work hard. Your talent will become noticed over time.
Keep at it. Reiterate just to what I said at the beginning, you know, keep in touch with the joy, with the love, with the passion of it. As soon as this doesn't become fun, get out. Do anything you can to avoid the desperation, you know, whether that is having the side job so you're not needing to worry about it financially, so you're not having to look at every audition as a make it or break it standpoint, because none of us can predict when it's going to hit, when it's going to happen. You know, you might be the 20-year-old ingenue that's going to walk off the bus and get discovered and be in Spielberg's next big picture. You know, you might not be the person that you may not hit it until you're 57 years old. You know, you may have the career path of Catherine Jewston. You know, rest in peace. You don't know. And as long as you are having fun, valuing the journey that you're currently on, then it's worth it. Keep at it. And if you're valuing the journey, you've already got the success.
Yeah, remember what you started in the business for, and the reasons for it. Is it fame and fortune? If it is, that's fantastic. If that's your goal, it's okay to have those goals. But you know, waiting around for that job that's going to pay you, $10,000 a week so you can afford to do, what you enjoy doing or whatever, that's fine, but it could be, slim in happening. Do your own stuff, create your own content. You can do student films, which who knows where that leads. Maybe, this guy who's doing a 15-minute student film, which, it pays nothing, but it's going to shoot over a weekend. Maybe that might be worth doing more so, because that guy can go on to direct features in 2 years. You never know who's going to go on to do what, because everyone that's starting off is in the exact same boat as everyone else. They only have themselves and can only rely on themselves. Nobody else is going to care about your career or getting you to some point. An agent, sure, maybe, because they get, that's how they make their living, is by repping people who are going to go on to generate income. But you have to care more than anybody else about what you want to do and decide what that is.
I think it's really important to know yourself, be honest with yourself, and be comfortable with yourself. And I'm going to piggyback on you to really work hard at it. I think that there's a lot of people out there who want to be actors, and they don't really train themselves very much. They don't do theater. They don't expose themselves to a lot of that. And that's not, that's, I don't think that's anybody here, but, that's not going to get you where you need to be. So you have to work the craft and really know yourself as an actor, and be comfortable with that.
What they said, but also, I think it's really important to have balance in your life. You need to have something else going on besides this. I mean, everything, what they said was all true, but if you completely obsess over your career, you're going to become scary and psychotic and desperate. So, travel and build friendships outside of this industry and have hobbies and write. I mean, just do something, and I don't know, I think it'll be beneficial to you.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for that. We will wrap up with a few more questions, but I'm so glad that we did that first because it was really inspiring to hear, and I appreciate all of your time. I know we all do. Okay, so would you rather see someone really go for it and reel them back, or would you rather see them contained right off the bat? Not crazy, but more dramatic.
Go for it. I mean, in my experience anyway, especially if working on a comedy, I'll see people holding themselves back, and I don't have the energy or the time to push you forward. Hopefully, by the time you get to me, you are a trained professional actor, so you already have it within you that you will instinctually not be over the top. You're not going to be cartoony. You're not going to be crazy pants insane, I would rather you, and this is me personally, and there are definitely people that feel very strongly the other way, but I would rather see, well, let me rephrase that. What I need more than anything else is to find the character. To find a character that inspires us, that is that has that aha, that is our person moment. And instinctually, each time, you're going to have to judge what's going to be most needed for the role.
The most common note that we give in the room is to pull it back or just throw it away. It's the most common note all of us in the office, give in the room. So I think that you want to make choices, but you want to be real, ultimately. I think that sometimes there's an instinct to do something that's just not real. I personally really respond to natural actors. So tonally, you have to know what show you're going in for. If you're going in for Breaking Bad, I mean, it's like the most simple, raw realism. That's what you want to bring to it. So tone is so important in your audition. But, everyone does it. Everyone does a little too much. And when you get that note, just take it. It's not, don't think, oh, crap, I did too much. Just throw it away. That's it.
You have to remember what an intimate medium the camera is. You don't have to do a lot for it to register. So
Everything is on camera now.
yeah.
And you're here. So
Okay, thank you.
bear that in mind.
Here's a question from a talent manager. You've talked about networking. Can you prioritize appearance at a red carpet event versus honing your craft at a workshop? Which would be of greater benefit?
Always be in class. Don't worry about the glamour part.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, do you want to be an actor and a performer or be on TMZ? I mean, what's more important? Is it the recognition of the job or is it the job itself? I think it is a way to look at that question.
Right, and you can go to a red carpet and meet a director who you schmooze with, who then brings you, makes us bring you in for something. But then if you're not working at it and you're not that, very good, you're not going to get the part. So ultimately, what you really have to worry about is being a good actor. That will get you work.
Okay, that's a good answer. Several of you have shows that shoot out of state. How do you define which roles are cast from LA and which are cast locally? Do you consider if we can work as a local hire in a particular city?
Well, we do a lot of shows that don't shoot here. We've had 2 in the last 3 years that have shot in LA. So when we read the script, we make educated, assumptions about what we think is going to come from where. We already know what our budget is. We know what our recurring cast is for that episode, and if we can afford to bring someone, from LA. And then we all get on a call with the producers, with the local casting directors and us, and discuss it. If there's something very specific, even if it's a small role, but that they don't think they have locally, we'll come on. But every show's budget is completely different. Every show's different in whether it's a procedural, whether it's a character-driven drama with very few roles, a lot of recurrings. So it's hard to answer that question generally because it's specific from show to show and episode to episode. In terms of local, if you're a local somewhere, I think that's great. The person who needs to know that is the local casting director, more so than us. When we're working on something, we've got the budget to fly you in, so we wouldn't really want you to fly yourself in. So a local agent, if you really do want to, take that seriously and work locally and informing the local casting director, sending your information, your headshot and resume and reel to them is invaluable. They will work on roles we will not look at.
And knowing exactly what it means to be a local hire, especially working on a show that shoots in Canada. I also did Fringe and Alcatraz, and I also did a pilot that shot actually in Ontario. Knowing what it means, that it's not just, I'll fly myself to Hawaii and, you can put me on Hawaii 5-0 or on Lost, or, I can get to Atlanta, that's fine, just put me on. It means, okay, well, I would need you there in 3 days. That you can fly yourself there, that, you are, for example, a Canadian citizen, and where that actually means. One of the pilots I did last year, we needed to satisfy the Ontario tax credit, which basically meant then this was a learning process for us, but to be considered a local hire there, you actually needed to pay your 2011 taxes in the province of Ontario.
Canada's different. They've got
it's
a lot
wacky.
of
So wherever you're going to say that you're a local hire from, make sure you are the expert of that area and you know what that entails.
Cool. Let's see. Do you have any advice for older actors who are getting back into the business?
Welcome.
That was a quick one.
Oh, I'm just like.
Welcome, older actors. Next.
If it were just like a young kid starting off, anybody can. That's one of the great things about this business is that you can start at any time and you can hit your stride at any time, or you can decide to leave and come back, and you never know when you're going to find when it's your time. Maybe you started off in your 20s right out of school and I don't really like this, but then now in your 50s you're like, I'm going to give it a whirl, and that's when the characters click with you. So I think the advice applies to actors of any ages or of any career level. Just enjoy what you're doing and be persistent.
And there's a definite need for older actors. So that's what I really mean with the welcome part, because again, actors in their 20s, there's a lot of them. Actors in their 80s and 90s, not so much. So I mean, absolutely. It's never too late to get into it, and sometimes you do need to jump back at square one as far as taking the workshops, getting your name out there, relearning what the industry is now, but staying on top of that and getting into it.
Does it still make sense for an actor living outside of Los Angeles or New York to come to the big cities for pilot season?
It really depends. Do you have representation? Are you going to be able to get in, or are you just going to come and sit around and pray that you figure out some way to get in the door somewhere? I mean, coming here for 3 months with absolutely no representation and no relationships, I'm not sure why you'd do that.
Find out if the shows are casting there. A lot of my pilots, we've had multiple cities. For example, when we did Raising Hope, we were casting out of here in LA, we did New York, we did Chicago. I've also done pilots that do Miami, Vancouver, Toronto, Sydney, London, all over, especially with pilot seasons, get in good with your local casting directors, find out what they're working on and what they get farmed out for, because a lot of times we will be seeing people in other cities.
Yeah, and if you have an LA agent and you have a great setup for self-taping, we have hired so many actors that we've then flown in to be tested via self-tape. That's how Andrew Lincoln was hired, from a video in his bedroom. So, it depends on on your situation, but I don't think you physically have to be here for pilot season as much
Marcy
as you used
Liroff
to
had
be
a
able
great
to.
article in Backstage, I think this week's Backstage, which definitely check it out, but addressing that and, being able to stay on top of it and technology. We are doing so much on tape that
The world's changed.
it's changed completely. Know how to self-tape, practice that, but yeah, I don't think you physically need to be here so much anymore.
How long will casting take to give an actor notice about a callback after the initial audition for a pilot? So how long can you wait to hear back if you did a good
It all
job?
depends on, a callback could happen in an hour, or a callback could happen next week after they see more people. You could test at one place, and all of a sudden somebody hears you're testing somewhere. So it's like, oh, let's test him for our thing. Let's go get him now. So you could run all around town. It's a weird thing with time, and it's like, oh, I went in and had a great audition, but I haven't heard anything. No, callbacks might not be for 2 weeks until they pre-read 200 people, or because the director is not available, so they're not going to have callbacks till he's back. And then all these things that, if you're repped, you can have your agent or manager call and see what's going on. Is there a schedule or callback set yet? But generally, as an actor, there's so much stuff that you can't know, or I don't mean can't know because it's forbidden, but so many things that are out of your control.
Okay, I think we are going to wrap it up here. I would really like to thank you guys. Can I give them a round of applause? You really have our respect. You really have our respect for being so free with your knowledge, and you've earned such credibility over the years, so thank you. And you guys here and you guys at home have our respect as well for taking the time out of your life to learn something from these people. So thank you, and thank you, SAG Foundation, Audit, Virtual Channel Network. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.